Welcome back to the Citrus Today Show. Today marks a milestone because Dr. Joan Bradshaw, this is going to be her last time with us today on the show. And we hate to lose you.
Well, thank you, Dennis. It's been a wonderful opportunity, and I've always enjoyed coming and visiting with you about critters and whatever we've got to talk about.
But you're moving on to bigger and better things, and going to enjoy a little retirement, right?
I am. I think retirement's kind of a misnomer. From what I understand, you're busier than ever, and that's what my hopes are. So
there you go.
Getting outside and doing some things. So.
Well, today we call you Madam Butterfly.
There we go.
Because we're going to talk about butterflies today, right?
About butterflies. I was just out in the Learning Center today, took a look through, getting ready for our show today. I thought, we really need to talk a little bit more about butterflies. So let me show you a little something here, what we've got. We're going to take a look at attracting butterflies to your yard. And oftentimes people just think, oh gosh, we have a few varieties here. But oftentimes they don't realize that we have over 180 species identified here in Florida. And so we've got quite a few different kinds that are available. We've got sulfur. The one on the right-hand side there is called a cloudless sulfur. And it's almost like a little yellow piece of tissue paper that kind of blows across your yard. It hardly even looks like a butterfly at all. And they are just a beautiful butterfly. Also monarchs. Everybody's pretty familiar with that orange monarch butterfly. And also there are monarch lookalikes. There's one that's called the Queen, and there's also one called the Viceroy that are orange butterflies like that. The one on the bottom next to it is an eastern tiger swallowtail, and swallowtails are just beautiful. They have an extended tail on them. It has a yellow body, and then underneath it has sort of a blue look to it. And the one on the left-hand side is a Gulf fritillary. It's also an orange butterfly, but much more condensed looking than that. So these are what we might see right now in our landscape. But the question always becomes the so what? So if you're a guy or a gal that are interested in butterflies, but you never really thought too much about their value in the landscape, they're really very valuable in that, like a bee, and bees get a lot more PR than butterflies do, they are pollinators of plants and flowers. And also a secondary value, if you think about the food chain, is they do provide food for other animals, and as we see here, a bird feeding a young nestling there. Yeah. So one of the things we need to think about when we want to attract butterflies to our landscape is to go ahead and attract plants or incorporate plants that do attract butterflies into the landscape. One of the things we need to keep in mind is there's two different stages, of course, that are important in the life cycle. That as adults, they need nectar, which is the flowers, whereas in the early stages, the larval stage, they need a host plant, and that's when people don't like them because they chew all your plants all up, is that caterpillar stage. But you can also incorporate some other things into the landscape like a feeder, and also another thing, what we've got on the right-hand
the right-hand bottom corner
That's
there?
right. That's a puddling station. And you might not have thought much about that, Dennis, but a puddling station is like a bird bath for butterflies, but not deep. It's really shallow, and what they do is they come in, and as the word suggests, is they come in and just puddle around in there, and that's how they drink water. So they don't like some big deep thing that they might fall into. So puddling stations are important and an interesting component to add to your landscape. So what do the butterflies require? Well, just like you and I, we have different requirements in terms of what we like to eat. So for monarch butterflies, they really like milkweed, but not cosmos. So when you're designing your landscape, you want to provide a wide variety of plant material to attract a wide variety of butterflies. Just a few butterfly bits and tips. Don't be using pesticides anywhere near where you want to invite butterflies. Of course, this is real detrimental to their health, and you don't want to attract them and then go around and then have chemicals that might be detrimental to them. Now, how the scientists determine this, but they can only see yellow, green, and red. So that means that the materials or the plant materials that you are planting need to have yellow or red flowers on them so that will attract them. And then if you are interested in raising butterflies, you want to be sure not to touch their wings, because that can be really detrimental in terms of impeding their ability to fly. So those are all just information that you need to do. The other thing is planting a wide variety of plants to provide for caterpillars as well as nectar for adults throughout all growing season. And you want to put at least a couple of different plants in a given area so that you can attract them in more of a group kind of setting. So just a few quick tips. And again, when we take a look at, there's all kinds of resources available. I find one of the most fun places to travel is if you're in the Gainesville area. I don't know if you've been to the rainforest.
I've actually been up there, yes.
That is,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. You can go inside and you're kind of in this atrium all set up for butterflies. So if you want to know a little bit more about butterflies, it gives you an opportunity to go on inside. We do have a great little fact sheet that's called Florida Wildflowers and Butterflies. On one side, it gives you the rundown on different butterflies and how to identify them. And on the back, it gives you what flowers to put in your landscape. So this is a free publication. It is put out by the University of Florida and is kind of a nice publication. There's all kinds of field guides too, if you want to get serious about it. There's Butterflies of Florida, and then there's also one that is Florida Butterfly and Caterpillars. We also have lots of information at our office, and anyone that would like to call, we'd be delighted to answer their questions.
Very good. Well, we wish you the best in retirement.
Thank you.
We know you're going to have a blast doing that.
Do a little butterfly gardening.
We will miss you here. You'll do a little butterfly gardening. Huh?
Thank you.
All right. Well, stay with us, everybody. We will be back with more on Citrus Today right after this. Welcome back once again to our Citrus Today show. Erin Pagan joining us from the American Red Cross. Glad to have you back here.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about flooding today because tis the season, if I can put it that way.
Yes.
We have so many of these thunderstorms that roll through during the summer, the late summer months. Of course, hurricanes are always a threat up through October, the beginning of November. So flooding is always a possibility in our part of Florida. And you just had some recently in Hernando County, right?
Absolutely. Actually, this past weekend, we had Hernando County get a bunch of rain kind of all at once, and that's all it tends to take is dump a bunch of rain in a short amount of time, and the ground just cannot absorb it fast enough. And before you know it, the streets become waterways, and everybody's in there, have to get in their rowboats and get down the street. And so certainly if you don't know about it enough in advance to be able to sandbag around your home, or if you're in a low-lying area, all of a sudden that water really starts to invade your home, and before you know it, you really become impacted. And so, of course, that winds up cutting off the power to your home, and so now your refrigerator, of course, is not working, and your food starts to spoil, and it becomes really hot, of course.
Right.
And so, we opened a shelter, and at first we had about 12 folks who were going to be joining us for the night, and then they were able to join family and friends in nearby areas that weren't impacted, so we only had 5 for the night. But it was nice that we had a safe, dry place for those folks to come and spend the night. And then the next day they were able to go back to their homes. And so we were able, through our emergency management partner there in Hernando County, to go ahead and close the shelter. But we're here. That's what we do. We're here in Citrus County to do the same thing. And should that happen, that's what we can do. But we definitely want to talk about flooding today because that can happen here. And we want to be able to talk to folks about what you can do, the difference between a flood watch and a flood warning. Lots of times folks don't know the difference. So we can chat a little bit about that today.
Very good. Well, that's a good place to start, the difference between the two.
Absolutely. So flood watch means that flooding is possible, that we're having certain conditions with the weather that mean that flooding is very possible for your area. So stay informed. Be watching the news, be listening to your radio, and be on the lookout. The flood warning means that it's happening. It's in your area. It's very prevalent. Go ahead and start making your arrangements now. It's either very close by in a neighborhood or in your area, and so go ahead and be making arrangements at that time. So I think, we always talk about staying informed, and I think that, at that time is not the time to turn the radio off. Don't turn the TV off. Now's the time to really be listening because things can change so rapidly. I saw actually a little infographic, we call them, the other day that, in Florida at 3:45 p.m., it's beautiful out, it's sunny, it's breezy, and at 3:50, it's raining, sideways, and it's gray, and it looks like a hurricane's here.
That's the thing about Florida. I mean, we always tell people, well, if you don't like the weather right now, wait an hour and
Exactly,
it'll be different.
and it will change. So I think staying informed is extremely important. We talked, I think, on a previous segment about being prepared to evacuate. So as important as your disaster kit, which we've built on a previous segment,
right,
is preparing that bag to evacuate. And so whether you're evacuating to go stay with a friend or a family member in an area not too far away, or you're actually going to come to a Red Cross shelter, is having that bag to actually evacuate your home. And again, we've talked about having your medications in it, having a change of clothes, having some hygiene items, and then having some comfort items, and certainly some sleeping gear in there. Staying away from floodwaters, so important, especially here in Florida. There can be a lot of bacteria in floodwaters that make you sick. There can be animals in there, including poisonous snakes. So stay away from the water. I think people think they'll just kind of walk through it. They might be walking through it with children, and before you know it, now you have a child playing in something that looks like it's not too deep, and now we might have a child who doesn't know how to swim, and it takes a very small amount of water for a child to actually drown.